Little by little, day by day, what is meant for you will find its way. With this enthusiastic thought, a very good morning to all my dear students. I hope you all are doing really well. I, Shreya Jadhav, welcome you all to my e learning channel. And today we will be doing English Grade 12 Supplementary Reading Unit 2 The Tiger King, written by Kalki. And this video is part 2 of the unit. So let us know something about the author. Ramaswamy Krishnamurthy, born on 9th September 1899, died on 5th December 1954. Ramaswamy Krishnamurthy, better known by his pen name Kalki, was an Indian writer, journalist, poet, critic, and Indian independence activist. He was named after Kalki, the 10th and the last avatar of Hindu god Vishnu. His writing include over 120 short stories, 10 novellas, 5 novels, 3 historical romances, editorial and political writings, and hundreds of films and music review. Kalki Krishnamurthy received the Sangeetha Kala Shikhamani Award conferred on him by the Indian Fine Arts Society in 1953. So now let us go through the introduction for answers. Now dear students, whenever you write down your answers, you are supposed to write introduction first. Prose name, The Tiger King. Author's name, Kalki. Genre, short story. Summary. Here we can say how the king of Pratibandhampuram tries to change its destiny, but it's not possible to change it. So in the previous video in chapter 2 part 1, we have done the reading and the explanation of the first 3 parts. The story is divided into 5 chapters, out of which we have done the first 3 part, and today we will be doing the remaining 2 part along with the summary of first 3 parts. So let us begin. Chapter 2 The Tiger King. So let us go through the summary of the first 3 units. The Maharaja of Pratibandhampuram had many titles, including Jilani Jang Jang Bahadur, but he was well known as Tiger King. The writer humorously tells us that everybody who read about the Maharaja would be tempted to meet him, but that would not be possible as the Maharaja was no more. However, his myth continues to fascinate people. When he was born, the astrologers foretold that he would grow up to be a warrior of warriors and hero of heroes, but one day he would have to meet his death. At that very moment, the baby prince, who was only 10 days old, began to speak aloud clearly but in a squeaky voice and started questioning the astrologers. The boy prince told them it was commonly known fact that anyone who took birth in this world had to die one day, and death needed no predictions, but he wanted to know the manner of his death. The chief astrologer told him that because he was born in the hour of the bull and tigers were enemies, so his death would be due to a tiger. The child was not even scared. In fact, he warned the tigers to be on their guard and be aware of him. The little crown prince grew taller and stronger day by day. In his childhood, the little prince drank the milk of an English cow. He looked after by an English nanny, was tutored in English and by a Englishman, and saw nothing but English films. He was crowned the king at the age of 20. The astrologer's prediction slowly reached his ears. He went on a tiger hunt and killed his first tiger. He happily sent for the state astrologer, who warned him that his death would be due to a tiger. He might kill 99 tigers, but the 100th tiger would prove to be fatal for him. If the king would succeed in killing the 100th tiger, the astrologer promised to cut off his tuft of hair, burn all his astrology books, and become an insurance agent. The Maharaja now banned tiger hunting in his kingdom and passed an order that if anyone dared to flinch so much as a stone at a tiger, all his wealth and property would be confiscated. The king was determined to prove the prediction wrong and vowed to attend to all other kingdom matters only after killing 100 tigers. The Maharaja faced many dangers. Sometimes his bullet missed its mark. A tiger leaped upon him, and he had to fight a beast with his bare hands, but each time he won. A British officer, who is also called as Durai, visited Pratibandhampuram with a wish to hunt tigers. He was very fond of getting his pictures clicked with the dead body of a tiger. The Maharaja was determined not to give him any permission, as he wanted to kill the tigers himself. He told him that he would arrange a hunt for anything else than that of a tiger for officer, but the men wanted to hunt only tigers. The secretary brought news that the Maharaja could kill the tiger, but the officer wanted only a photograph. The Maharaja refused permission. He felt that if he relented, other British officers too would turn up with same request. He was now in danger of losing his kingdom. So after discussions with his divan, they came up with a plan. 50 diamond rings were sent to British officers' good women, that is, the wife of British officer, who is also known as Durasani, from the famous British company of jewelers in Kolkata. The Maharaja expected that she would choose one or two rings, but the greedy lady kept the whole lot. The bribe cost him 3 lakh rupees, but his kingdom was saved. So this is what we have done in the first part of this video. And now today we will be taking about the fourth and the fifth part of reading and explanation. Part 4. The Maharaja's tigers hunt continued to be highly successful. Within 10 years, he was able to kill 70 tigers, and then an unforeseen hurdle brought his mission to stand still. The tiger population became extinct in the forest of Pratibandhampuram. Who knows whether the tigers practiced birth control or committed harakiri, or simply ran away from the state because they desired to be shot by British hands alone. So now what happened, that the Maharaja was successful in killing many tigers, and within 10 years he was able to kill several other tigers, but all of a sudden a hurdle came in between and the tiger population became extinct in Pratibandhampuram. So now he was supposed to think something else. One day the Maharaja sent for Diwan. Diwan Sahib, aren't you aware of the fact that 30 tigers still remain to be shot down by this gun of mine? He asked, brandishing his gun. Shuddering at the sight of the gun, the Divan cried out, Your Majesty, I am not a tiger. Which idiot would call you a tiger? No, and I am not a gun. You are neither tiger nor gun. Divan Sahib, I summoned you here for a different purpose. I have decided to get married. The Divan began to babble even more. Your Majesty, I have two wives already. If I marry you, don't talk nonsense. Why should I marry you? What I want is tiger. Your Majesty, please think it over. Your ancestors were married to the sword. If you like, marry the gun. The Tiger King is more than enough for the state. It doesn't need a Tiger Queen as well. The Maharaja gave a loud crack of laughter. I'm not thinking of marrying either a tiger or a gun, but a girl from the ranks of human beings. First, you may draw up statistics of tiger populations in the different native states. Next, you may investigate if there is a girl I can marry in the royal family of a state with a large tiger population. So, over here, Diwan Sahib was really very worried that as 30 more tigers are left to be killed, what would be his situation? So he started babbling around. He was so much frightened by the king. And the king told that, no, draw up the statistics so that they can come to know that in which native there are more tigers in population, so that he can marry one of the royal families over there, the princess, and can complete his target. The Divan followed his orders. He found the right girl from a state which possessed a large number of tigers. Maharaja Chang Chang Bahadur killed 5 or 6 tigers each time he visited his father in law. In this manner, 99 tiger skins adorned the wall of the reception hall in the Pratibandham Puram. So, what happened? The Diwan followed the orders and found a match for the king. The Maharaja killed 5 or 6 tigers each time he visited his father in law. He managed to kill 99 tigers, and then, unfortunately, the tigers in his father in law's kingdom became extinct. Now, only one tiger remained to be killed. The fifth part. The Maharaja's anxiety reached a fever pitch when there remained just one tiger to achieve his tally of 100. He had this one thought during the day and the same dream at night. By this time, the tiger farms had run dry even in his father in law's kingdom. We have seen that unfortunately he was able to kill 99 tigers, but now in his father in law's kingdom also this became extinct, and only one tiger was remained for killing. It became impossible to locate tigers anywhere, yet only one more was needed. If he could kill just that one single beast, the Maharaja would have no fears left. He would give up tiger hunting altogether. But he had to be extremely careful with the last tiger. What had the late chief astrologer said? Even after killing 99 tigers, the Maharaja should be aware of the 100th. True enough, the tiger was a savage beast after all. One had to be wary of it. But where was that 100th tiger to be found? It seemed easier to find tiger's milk than a live tiger. Thus, Maharaja was sunk in a gloom, but soon came the happy news which dispelled that gloom. In his own state, sheep began to disappear frequently from a hillside village. It was the first ascertained that this was not the work of Khadir Mian Sahib or Virasami Naikar, both famed for their ability to swallow sheep whole. Surely, a tiger was at work. The villagers ran to inform the Maharaja. The Maharaja announced a 3 years exemption from all taxes for that village and set out on hunt at once. The tiger was not easily found. It seemed as if it had wantonly hid itself in order to flout the Maharaja's will. The Maharaja was equally determined. He refused to leave the forest until the tiger was found. As the days passed, the Maharaja's fury and obstinacy mounted alarmingly. Many officers lost their jobs. One day, when his rage was at height, the Maharaja called the Diwan and ordered him to double the land tax forthwith. The Maharaja was upset as he was unable to find the last tiger. Suddenly, there came news that a tiger had been seen in a hillside village of his state. The Maharaja was so happy at the news that he announced a 3 year exception from all taxes for that village and set out on the hunt at once. The tiger, it seemed, kept himself hidden, so the Maharaja's anger started increasing. He ordered that all the land taxes should be doubled. The people will become discontented. Then our state too will fall a prey to Indian National Congress. In that case, you may resign from your post, said the king. Now, over here, the Diwan tried to warn him that if such measures would be taken from the Maharaja, then it would prove to be a catastrophic for the kingdom. And our kingdom may be in the hands of Indian National Congress. The Maharaja got very angry and asked the Diwan to resign. The Diwan went home convinced that if the Maharaja did not find the tiger soon, the results would be catastrophic. He felt life returning to him only when he saw the tiger which he had brought from People's Park in Madras and kept hidden in his house. At midnight, when the town slept in peace, the Diwan and his aged wife dragged the tiger to the car and shooed it into the seat. The Diwan himself drove the car straight and reached the forest. The tiger launched its satyagraha and refused to get out of the car. The Diwan was thoroughly exhausted in his efforts to haul the beast out of the car and push it down to the ground. On the following day, the same old tiger wandered into Maharaja's presence and stood as if in a humble supplication. Master, what do you command of me? It was with boundless joy that Maharaja took careful aim at the beast. The Maharaja fell in crumpled heap. I have killed the 100th tiger. My vow has been fulfilled. The Maharaja was overcome with elation. Ordering the tiger to be brought to the capital in the grand procession, the Maharaja hastened away in his car. Now, in order to save himself, the Diwan decided to get the 100th tiger for the king. An old tiger was brought from the People's Park in Madras and kept hidden in his house. At midnight, when all were asleep in the village, the Divan and his old aged wife dragged the old and weak tiger to their car and pushed it into the back seat. And the Divan drove the car to the place where the Maharaja was hunting. Now the tiger resisted and refused to get out of the car. The Divan had to haul and push it down on the ground. The following day, the Maharaja was delighted to see the 100th tiger. He took careful aim and shot at the beast. The tiger fell into a crumpled heap. The Maharaja was filled with lots and lots of happiness at fulfilling his vow. He ordered the tiger to be brought to the capital in grand procession and he left in his car. After the Maharaja left, the hunters went to take a closer look at the tiger. The tiger looked back at them, rolling its eyes in bafflement. The men realized that the tiger was not dead. The bullet had missed it. It had fainted from the shock of the bullet whizzing past. The hunters wondered what they should do. They decided that the Maharaja must not come to know that he had missed his target. If he did, they would lose their jobs. One of hunters took aim from a distance of 1 foot and shot the tiger. This time he killed it without missing his mark. So over here, after the Maharaja left, the hunters went to take a close look at the tiger. They were very shocked to see that tiger was still alive. The tiger had actually fainted from the shock of the bullet which whizzingly passed him. They decided not to tell Maharaja because he had missed his target. They feared losing their jobs. One of the hunters then killed the tiger himself, and the dead tiger was taken in a procession through the town. A tomb was erected over it. Then, as commanded by the king, the dead tiger was taken in procession through the town and buried. A tomb was erected over it. A few days later, the Maharaja's son's third birthday was celebrated. Until then, the Maharaja had never given his entire mind over to the tiger hunting. He had no time to spare for the crown prince. But now the king turned his attention to the child. He wished to give him some special gift on his birthday. He went to the shopping center in Pratibandhampuram and searched every shop but couldn't find anything suitable. Finally, he spotted a wooden tiger in a toy shop and decided it was a perfect gift. The wooden tiger cost only 2 annas and a quarter. But the shopkeeper knew that if he quoted such a low price to Maharaja, he would be punished under the rules of emergency. So he said, "Your Majesty, this is an extremely rare example of craftsmanship. A bargain at 300 rupees. Very good. Let this be your offering to Crown Prince on his birthday," said the king, and took it away with him. On that day, father and son played with that tiny little wooden tiger. It had been carved by an unskilled carpenter. Its surface was rough. Tiny slivers of wood stood up like quills over it. One of those silvers pierced the Maharaja's right hand. He pulled it out with his left hand and continued to play with the prince. The next day, infection flared into the Maharaja's right hand. In 4 days, it developed into a suppurating sore which spread all over his arm. Three famous surgeons were brought in from Madras. After holding a consultation, they decided to operate. The operation took place. The three surgeons who performed it came out of the theatre and announced the operation was successful. The Maharaja is dead. In this manner, the 100th tiger took its final revenge upon the Tiger King. Now, here, after achieving the feat, the Maharaja turned his attention to his child. It was his third birthday and he wished to give him something really special. He went for shopping but couldn't find anything worthy enough in the market of Pratibandhampuram. Finally, he spotted a wooden tiger and brought it for his son from a toy shop. The wooden tiger was carved by an unskilled carpenter. Tiny silvers of that wood stood up like quills all over it. One of silvers pierced the Maharaja's right hand while he was playing with his son. He pulled it out and continued to play with his son. The next day, infection spread in his hand, and on fourth day it developed into an festering sore which spread all over his arms. Three best surgeons were called from Madras and operated on him, but were unable to save his life. Thus, the 100th tiger took its revenge and the Tiger King lost his life. The Tiger King is a satire on pride of those in power. The story is a good mix of supernatural and humor. Dear students, I hope you all have understood the chapter and this is really interesting story. Thank you for watching. If you have any doubt or queries, you can comment down in the comment section. Thank you for watching and have a nice day.